Naruto's experiences never were much different than those of the villains. But even still, he never turned into a villain. He so easily could have, and even Naruto himself stated this in the past. But the truth about heroes isn't what they went through when they were a child, it's what they choose to do with it that matters. If you've been hurt in the past, I'm sure the wounds are something that needs to be healed, and I'm certain the help of others would contribute to that. But the point remains, if you've been hurt, are you going to take your pain and make others hurt with it? Or is it better to understand that pain and decide that you don't ever want to make anyone feel the way that you did? That is what separates a hero from a villain. Not the past we go through, but the decision of what to do with that pain. Anyone can be a hero, and that boils down to a choice. Maybe you don't have powers. Maybe you're disabled. Maybe you've been hurt. Maybe you've hurt someone else. It doesn't matter. Every day is a new day, and right now at this very moment, you have the choice to be a hero. Even if yesterday you were a villain, you can be a hero right now. That's one of the greatest lessons you can learn from Naruto, and it's why Naruto is such a legendary show. But alas, I've gone on a bit too long. In the last episode, we got to see the early childhoods of Naruto and Gaara, and today we're going to explore the beginnings of their story as Shinobi. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed, so if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you're subscribed. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Naruto, Kankuro, and Temari were jumping through the trees. They landed on a tree limb. Let's rest for a moment. Naruto sat down, as did his siblings. They had just come from the Land of Iron, where they'd been tasked with the assassination of a low-ranking shogun. Their mission was indeed a success, but of course it would be. Low-ranking shoguns weren't generally worth much, especially due to the equally low-level security detail that they had on them. And chances were that Naruto and his siblings wouldn't get paid for this. Prices had to be slashed after all. The sad truth was Suna was in very bad shape. Konoha was a far more popular shinobi village, and their shinobi were very skilled. Because of that, most of the contacts for any form of assistance, from espionage to security, all of it funneled to Konoha, while Suna basically had to make do with the scraps that they had to share with the likes of Kusa and Ame. The Sand Daimyo was considering cutting back on funds to Suna, which meant downsizing. Their village would soon become the equivalent of a third world village. Despite thirsting for cash, their father had instead slashed prices. The reason for this was actually pretty genius according to Naruto. He wanted to encourage others to choose them over Konoha, since they could provide similar levels of quality at a lower price, and could outplay the other villages like Kusa and Ame. But furthermore, it would boost the reputation of Suna Shinobi, which meant that when Suna had to inevitably raise prices, they could have at least developed a loyal base that was sure that Suna had the superior workers. Issue was, Suna didn't. Suna didn't have the superior shinobi. Konoha still beat them out. And even since the recent destruction of one of their leading clans, Konoha was still better than Suna. Their Hyuga clan was more than enough to pull the slack left behind by the Uchiha. In fact, they were basically just a more efficient and predictable version of the Uchiha, so Konoha essentially lost nothing. And despite them only having one-tailed beast, they had been the ones to capture and distribute them, which meant that they kept the strongest for themselves, that being the Nine-Tails. This massive fox was so strong that it could kill all of the other 8 beasts at once. It looked like the end was coming for Suna, and that had every shinobi there stressed. They would likely be absorbed into the main military force of the Land of Wind if they weren't just outright fired. Worst case scenario, the Sand Daimyo decides that Suna is too dangerous to be left alive and attempts to slaughter them all. In the end, it was unsure what the fate of Suna was going to be, but all they knew was that they had a duty to uphold as shinobi of this village, and they would not rest until they fulfilled their duties. Naruto stood up again. Alright, let's get going. They would return to Suna, where they would meet with their father and inform him that the mission was a success. That's good, was all their father had to say on the matter. They stood there, waiting to be dismissed, but they never were. They assumed that he had something more to say, and they guessed right. Rasa would then begin to speak to them. We have to talk about something. The 3 stood there. What I say doesn't get repeated anywhere else. The 3 looked at each other with worry and then returned their attention to their father. Rasa continued. Konoha is hosting the Chunin exams this year. Konoha has gotten too fat. They're monopolizing the shinobi business and need to be knocked down a peg. That's why I've partnered with a small nation known as Otogakure. Together, we're going to attend the Chunin exams, and as we come to the end, we're going to strike. We're going to devastate the village, and Oto is going to assassinate their Hokage. Naruto groaned a bit in the spirit as he heard this. Father, isn't this an act of war? Rasa nodded. That's why we're going to devastate them. We'll destroy their entire chain of command and ruin their ability to respond. They won't all die, but it'll ruin their reputation and make ours look better. Oto's Kage has already promised that we can take full responsibility. He merely wants to be the one to kill the Hokage, and I'll allow him. With a boost in our reputation, the clients of Konoha will flock to us, and Konoha will be put out of business. Naruto didn't like this idea. He was happy to serve his village, but to destroy another for no reason other than money? It felt the same as the assassination he had just committed. To put a price on someone's life and then take it, dirtying your hands for blood money. But all the same, he couldn't deny a direct order from the Kazekage, his father no less. At least he assumed he'd be taking part in this. After all, why else would their father bother to tell them? I assume we'll be going to this Chunin exam then, father? Rasa nodded. Tomorrow, you head out for Konoha. Tonight, I want you to read over this file and then burn it. Rasa pushed it forward to the three. It'll detail your role in this mission. You three are the strongest shinobi this village has to offer. I put our village's future in your hands. Please, try not to squander it. The three nodded and then went home. That night, they ate big and read up on what their next mission would be. They proceeded to sleep early and woke up equally early. They would proceed to leave the village at sunrise, beginning their walk all the way to Konoha. They walked for days and eventually made it to the gates. Upon entering, Naruto commented on how beautiful it looked, how lush. All of the trees were in bloom and the grass was so green. It was nothing like Suna. And yet, for all of its peaceful beauty, Naruto knew that this village was no pushover. In fact, he was witnessing this now. A particular boy was threatening another villager, his hand a claw like a fox. A partial transformation? That must be Gaara, Naruto said as he looked on. Gaara had just gotten back from his mission to the Land of Waves. Haku and Zabuza never stood a chance, not with the Ninetales incarnate and the last of the Uchiha there. Despite having graduated the academy and having had Kakashi left in charge of the team due to his Sharingan, which could control the Ninetales should it ever get out, Gaara was very much a menace to society. He was disliked by his team, most of which were afraid of him. Sasuke seemed to be the only one with a bit of guts, though he did tend to stay away from Gaara's bad side. Sakura was halfway ready to transfer out. Gaara was insane. Schizo, playing without a full deck. Kentucky Fried Bonkers with a side of ranch dressing, and everyone knew that. But something just seemed really off about seeing a shinobi attacking a villager from their own hidden village, so Naruto stepped up to him. You know, it's not nice to pick on your own villagers. As if anyone asked you. Gaara's stare was intense and full of malevolence. Naruto felt as if he were looking into the eyes of death itself. It wasn't long after that Sasuke showed up and put his hand on Gaara's shoulder. It's not worth it. Let's just go. Gaara would turn around and begin to walk away. The elderly man who was being assaulted turned to Naruto. Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. Naruto smiled at the man. No problem. The three of them found a place to stay for the night and went to officially register for the exams. The day after, they would wait in the waiting room. There, they saw some Otogakure shinobi. They assumed that this meant that Orochimaru was here. Their father had only arrived earlier this day. Everything was falling into place. It seemed a somewhat risky plan, however. After all, it did really rely upon the idea that Suna and Oto would make it to the final round. Surely there were failsafes, but unless there were, it was risky. Naruto supposed this is why they were here. They looked back and saw the rookie 9 enter the room, among them Gaara. Naruto was intrigued by this boy for some reason and couldn't help but watch him. His demeanor was always dark and his behavior always venomous. It was almost like with each breath he took, Gaara was spitting curses of death and hatred to the world. What you looking at? A voice asked. Naruto looked over to see Kabuto. Oh, just that boy over there. Kabuto looked over. Ah, Gaara. Yeah, I actually do have something on him. Kabuto pulled out a stat card that had a short bio of Gaara. As Naruto read it, he could tell that the bio did Gaara no justice, but it was helpful information to be sure. So, he's a Jinchuriki too, Naruto said in his own mind. Reading up on his bio, he began to realize that their two stories weren't that different, and that Gaara's current mindset might have been from the trauma he experienced growing up alone. It was then that the proctor of the first test, Ibiki Marino, walks in and implores the genin to follow him to the examination room. There they all take a seat and are provided with a test. As everyone settles in and has their test delivered to them, Naruto looks it over and at how difficult the questions are. He knows he's not here to actually pass this test fair and square, but to get to the next round so he can be in position, so it doesn't matter to him if he cheats. And so that's exactly what he does. He uses his third eye technique to summon an eye made of sand to hover around the class, looking at the sheets of other students and adding whatever answer is most popular. He seems to breeze through the test this way, but when the final question comes about, it comes with the stipulation that failure means that the shinobi remain genin forever. All things considered, Naruto is not intimidated by this because he knows that only his father can relegate him to the position of genin forever, not some soon-to-be obsolete village like Konoha. So he takes the test question anyway, and manages to pass the test for that simple reason. After this test came the Forest of Death. Now they were told that the goal of this mission was for each 3-man team to protect their scroll and steal one scroll from the opposing faction. Some teams had a Heaven Scroll, others had an Earth. Naruto and his team possessed an Earth Scroll, and because of that, it meant that they needed to target a team that had a Heaven Scroll. Naruto and his siblings would enter the Forest of Death and search for whoever had the Heaven Scroll. I mean, it's not like it was hard, and they knew where the other gates were, so they just headed toward where they thought there'd be a concentration of genin, likely by the river. There they would use Naruto's sand to tank any attacks, Temari's wind to knock the enemies back, and Kankoro's puppets to take the shinobi off guard and steal their scroll. They would then rush to the center of the forest where they'd enter the arena at the center and complete the test in 1 hour and 37 minutes. But of course, due to having gone so fast, Naruto and his siblings were allowed to rest for a while since the test had a deadline of 3 days, which seemed as though there would be a few who would fail. So for the next few days, Naruto, Temari, and Kankoro took it easy. They all rested and did whatever they wanted to do. However, there was a rumor that a large snake was seen in the Forest of Death, attacking a small group, the one consisting of Gaara, Sasuke, and Sakura. This resulted in the Uchiha boy being branded with some mark and falling ill. Naruto began to wonder what Orochimaru was up to. Was he attempting to help his team from Oto win? Were his shinobi that unprepared that they couldn't do a simple task like this on their own? Things seemed suspicious, but Naruto waved it off. Eventually, the Forest of Death's exam came to a close, with most students, save a few, actually surviving to the next round. There were way too many, so the Chunin exam's final exam would be split into 2 parts, a preliminary exhibition stage and the finals. As they continued on, Naruto discovered that his first opponent would be Rock Lee. As the fight began, Lee was allowed to take off his ankle weights, which dropped to the ground with a resounding thud that sent dust up into the air. Naruto's eyes widened. Rock Lee would approach him and the fight would begin. He began to test Naruto's defenses, which he put up as just barriers of sand for now. At current, Naruto was trying to gauge Rock Lee's true strength and abilities. He was impressed by how fast he was, but he was still slow enough for his sand barriers to catch him. That was until Lee opened up his gates. As soon as he opened these, his speed and strength went beyond anything Naruto had ever seen. Naruto was doing everything he could just to survive. His sand shield and sand armor were shattering. There was no way that Naruto could possibly fight back against this. But at the same time, he knew that Lee's muscles were ripping apart. He could tell based upon the movements of his body. At this point, it became a mock speed battle of attrition. Who could last the longest and take the most punishment? And right there at the end, Lee dropped him with a reverse lotus. With this, Lee was too tired to continue. He could hardly move. Naruto laid there for a moment. It became a question of whether this were a double knockout, and frankly, Naruto's just laying there in a crater for a moment wheezing. He was a little frustrated and was ready to come out with a vengeance. He came walking out of the cloud of dust toward Lee. Lee was tapped out. In fact, he might have been in worse condition than Naruto. The battle was over, and the only person at the time capable of kicking Rock Lee's ass was Rock Lee himself. Naruto looked down. That technique. What's that called? Naruto asked. The 8 gates formation, Lee said through his pain. A very dangerous technique for everyone involved, it seems. Lee didn't respond. Naruto stood up and pointed down at Lee. I'd call this a double victory. This one's earned my respect. Naruto would turn and walk away, leaving his words of praise behind for Lee. The paramedics then took the taijutsu expert off. They would attempt to stop Naruto as well, but Naruto would wave them off. He wasn't hurt too bad, and any damage done to him would be quickly healed by Shukaku. After all, from the training Naruto and Rasa had done, Shukaku was all but Naruto's prisoner now. He felt bad for the beast a little, but not as much as he could have. After all, the creature had intentionally killed his mother. Let him rot for eternity. A month would pass, and Naruto and his siblings expected to hear some word from their father, but all was silent. Naruto began to wonder why their father was avoiding them. It wouldn't be considered unusual for a Kage to speak with their children, especially if their children were participating in the exams he was watching. Nobody would suspect anything. In fact, it might seem more suspect if they didn't talk with each other during the exams. Naruto couldn't help but feel that something was up, but he didn't press the matter for fear that it might upset his father. For a week, they rested. Then came the day that they were to return to the exams. On that day, Naruto was set to fight Sasuke. Gaara had already fought Neji and utterly destroyed him. As the battle began, Naruto would once again test the limits of Sasuke's power. Just as he had feared, Sasuke had managed to increase his strength and had increased his speed as well to about the point of Lee's base abilities. He just hoped that Sasuke didn't possess the 8 Gates formation. It would suck to be subjected to that again. Thankfully, Sasuke didn't, but he did possess something else, something almost as bad, the Chidori. Naruto saw Sasuke charging it and began to worry what it could be. Sasuke was obviously going for a frontal attack or something. He knew Naruto could form a dome of sand to protect himself, yet Sasuke somehow thought he could break through it. That was troubling. As soon as Sasuke broke into a dash, Naruto recognized the speed and quickly threw up his barrier. He had made it just in time, but what he did not expect was that Sasuke's hand had pressed through the barrier and struck him in the chest. Naruto cried out in pain and stepped back. He looked at the wound and saw the smug look on Sasuke's face. He managed to close the wound with his sand. He would then look at Sasuke. "Is that how you want to play it then? Alright, let's go all out." Suddenly, Naruto awakened his partial transformation, taking on some of the characteristics of Shukaku. Sasuke's smug look turned to one of concern. "Oh, where was all that defiance you had just a second ago? Don't tell me that I've already let all the air out of your balloon." Naruto rushed forward with incredible speed, smashing the ground. But Sasuke jumped into the air and threw kunai down at Naruto with explosive tags attached to the ring. Naruto would seal himself up in a cocoon of sand to catch and stop the explosives from hurting him. Sasuke got down on the ground and saw this as his chance. He would charge his Chidori up and race forward. However, he didn't expect Naruto to lower the barrier. Naruto would then step to the side and grab Sasuke's arm. He would then throw Sasuke to the ground before pulling his shoulder out of joint. He looked up to the rest of the crowd. "I win. Now let's call this match before he gets hurt any worse than he already is." The match was called in favor of Naruto and Sasuke would be taken to the infirmary. Naruto stood there. He looked up to the Hokage's box and saw his father nod. Naruto smiled at the cheering crowd and bowed ever so slightly. He then spoke. "Thank you for having me here. It is indeed an honor. And on behalf of everyone in Suna, I would love to tell you to all go screw yourselves." Naruto would suddenly shift into the form of Shukaku as a smoke bomb would go off in the Hokage's viewing box. Naruto would proceed to stomp down upon any shinobi that was attempting to stop him. The masses were trying desperately to escape, and Naruto let them. He wasn't here to kill civilians. He was here to decimate Konoha's ability to fight, their military. And there was quite a bit of them here. But those that weren't here were being taken care of by Orochimaru's snakes. Speaking of the devil, Orochimaru had already made his way to face Hiruzen, but Naruto thought he saw them wearing the Kazekage's attire. Suddenly, something felt wrong. Wait, if he was dressed as Dad this whole time, then where's Dad? Naruto didn't have time to think about it. He had a job to do, and that was to destroy as many shinobi as possible. Suddenly, before him, Gaara's Nine Tails appeared. Oh crap, Naruto thought as he saw the beast that was obviously the superior of the two. Inside of him, Shukaku wanted to fight, but it wasn't long until Jiraiya's toad showed up, Gamabunta. Naruto was outnumbered and outgunned. He needed to escape now while the going was good, and so he collected his siblings and evacuated from the village. Thankfully, nobody followed them. They kept running until they got to Suna. There, they took a load off. They waited for their father to return to explain to them what happened with Orochimaru, but he never did. It was discovered that Orochimaru had killed him and left his body in the desert. Naruto and his siblings would lament for quite some time. Due to this, a hit would be put out on Orochimaru. Suna was ready to go to war with Oto over this. Weeks passed before they could finally lay their father to rest. Kankuro stood above the grave beside Naruto and Temari. He wasn't the best father, but he was the only parent we had left, Kankuro said. The others nodded. "I think father cared about us a lot more than he said," Naruto told them. "If it hadn't been for him, the assassins would have killed me a long time ago. He bought me time by sacrificing a deeper bond with us. He loved me enough that he would make me hate him, just to keep me safe. I'll never forget that." It wasn't long after, however, that they were informed that Orochimaru and his group had persuaded Sasuke to join them, and that a team was being put together to track them down. The Sand siblings would take the mission in hopes of being able to get Orochimaru and enact their revenge. There was one target, but there were 4 extra shinobi. The Sound 4 were running with Sasuke, and from what Naruto could tell with his third eye technique, the Sound 4 were slowing down the others. "Kankuro, Temari, break off and go help the others. They're pinned down by Otonin. Break them free." "And what about you?" Temari asked. "I'm going after Sasuke too," Naruto said. They then split off. Naruto would chase after Gaara and Sasuke, both of whom were heading for what appeared to be the Valley of the End. Naruto was closing in on them when he suddenly found Gaara and Lee stopped, facing off against a 5th shinobi named Kimimaro. Naruto landed on the ground and looked at the others, arms crossed. "Gaara," he said, "we can't be held up by this guy. "You go after Sasuke, we'll take care of this one." Gaara would rush off. Lee looked to Naruto. Naruto smiled. "It's gonna be fun to have you on a team with me instead of standing against me. Let's hope you've grown stronger since the last time we met. Everyone just keeps surpassing us." Together, Naruto and Lee rushed into battle against Kimimaro. Kimimaro would pull a bone blade from his body and ready it for attack. The strength of Kimimaro is indeed something beyond what Lee had been, and it seemed as though Kimimaro might body Naruto if Lee weren't there. Naruto would utilize Shukaku's partial transformation in hopes that it would give him an edge. It helped equalize a little better, but the moment that Kimimaro activated the second stage of his curse mark, Naruto's transformation felt lacking. It had nothing to do with the fact that this transformation was somehow better than the one Naruto had, it just so happened that Kimimaro's base skill was leagues above Naruto's. Naruto would summon a massive wave of sand to crush Kimimaro and bury him. They had thought that maybe they defeated Kimimaro. As they turned to chase after Gaara and Sasuke, however, Kimimaro made a surprise reappearance. He had formed a drill from his bones and dug himself out. But when he came up, he began to cough up blood. Naruto stood there. "You sure you're okay there?" Kimimaro wiped the blood from his lip. "It seems I don't have much time left." "No matter, there's still enough time to kill you." He would rush at Naruto and Lee, and the three would exchange blows for a time before Naruto attempted to bury him in the sand once more. However, in response, Kimimaro would raise a veritable forest of bone protrusions from the ground. Naruto and Lee would step back and look around. "Where is he?" Naruto asked. Coming up the bone spike, Kimimaro emerged from it and grew closer. But he had already pushed his body past its limit, and the kickback occurred right then and there. Kimimaro lost his life in that moment. If even a second more had passed, both Naruto and Lee would have died. They were lucky, but Gaara was not so lucky. He was overpowered by Sasuke and knocked out. Sasuke escaped. With Orochimaru now out of their grasp, Naruto and his siblings had no other choice but to return home. However, due to Naruto's progress, and due to the overwhelming power he possessed, he was granted the title of 5th Kazekage, replacing his father. This was something he and his siblings were grateful for. And now that he was Kazekage, it was going to be far easier for them to hunt down Orochimaru. Naruto would sit down in the seat that his father once held, and felt the weight of every decision his father ever had to make. Naruto looked out over his village and sighed. "I will make you proud, father. I promise." And that's where I'd like to end it for today. It's always nice to explore a familiar setting from a new point of view. Considering that Naruto was the aggressor and not the defender, Naruto never really had the chance to talk with Gaara and change him from that schizophrenic little psychopath he used to be. But that doesn't mean he'll never be able to. We'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, what was your favorite part of the video? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos as they release. Anyway, I hope you enjoy, and until next time, peace.